T-minus 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Launch Sequence Podcast. We got another week for you and some good stuff to talk about today. If you are wondering why my camera's all blurry in the background, I don't know, but computers are as computers are. I've brought actually the computer wizard in with me today, the one and only TenPoundFortyTwo, the benchmarking extraordinaire of Star Citizen, to talk about some interesting topics. We're going to touch on what's going on with Alpha 4.7, of course, but there are some game systems coming along, crafting, engineering, the armor system, radar. Stuff's kind of happening. Systems are developing. So I thought we would talk about how those are bouncing off each other and how they're going to lead into the rest of the year, what we might be seeing. Because there's just a lot of ramifications that come with this stuff, even going to armor. Thank you for joining me today for this talk, though, dude. How have you been?
Yeah, I'm good. There's lots of fun things happening in Star Citizen Land, so that's better than most years. So yeah. It's this is a good year start so far. Good start to 2026 from an SC point of view.
It's a busy start of the year. Is there another year where you remember January and February actually having some decent content coming out and stuff going on?
Not unless I'm missing something. I mean, it's been so many years now; it all blends into one. But no, the fact that we obviously had a patch in January with an event, things to do, and then big 4.7's a big one, and so no, you got to say this has got to be the best January, February that we've ever had. Normally we're just sitting around kind of waiting for CIG to release some sort of update or roadmap update or some monthly report, and we're like, normally they take ages to do anything, but no, this is good. This is a good start.
It was like basically the end of February where we would get the first roadmap roundup. Normally, the first roadmap update. It would be a whole month and a half of sitting and waiting. So it's been nice how the game's been performing so far. But do you feel like it is actually giving people something to be happy about, or are the things they're adding worthwhile?
I mean, I would say even though 4.7 is not it's not 1.0. So to speak, it's not like we've arrived, here we are, everything's perfect all of a sudden. It is a pretty big update and a good update towards where the game's going to go, and so having crafting coming in is a major kind of step towards where this game will end up in 1.0. And so what we can craft isn't amazing, like in terms of the scope of what we can do. It's quite limited, and there's things that are missing, and it's very tier 0, all that sort of stuff. But this is a step forward, and I think there will be some fun to be had in 4.7. I think depending on what sort of things you like to do, I think this might be a patch that people play for a little bit longer than sometimes people play. Sometimes people turn the patch on, play around for a week or so, and then they're like, "Oh, I'm done." There might be a bit more in this to do than that, I think.
Yeah, in it to win it. Do you think that the addition of what we've seen in crafting, you said people might be playing it more longer term, obviously you got more to progress on, but does it feel like it's really shifting the game? Like, yeah, crafting is being added in, but is the person who's listening to this who isn't actually interested in crafting, are they still going to see that affect the game around them?
If they're not interested in crafting, well, it's tricky, isn't it? If you're not interested in crafting or you're not interested in mining, you might look at this and think, well, what do I do here? I think this, whether this is a good thing or not, I think this will force some people to be interested in mining and crafting. I think if you're into any sort of like combat-y stuff, like on-foot combat stuff, I think there's a chance you're going to want to have an upgraded gun. I mean, I don't know if you've done much testing with it, but I've done a little bit of testing with the kind of upgrades that you can get on some guns versus like the downgrades. If you use low quality materials, you start to lose stats, and so there is a pretty big difference. And I think you don't have to engage in any of this, but I think if you're the sort of person who wants to do anything on foot in the game, so whether that's PvP, contested zone type stuff, or I don't know, just in general playing the game, you're kind of on foot quite a lot.
Yeah.
There's a case to say you're going to want to do a little bit of upgrading, but the thing is, it's not just immediately you go in and start crafting. You have to then first of all, you have to get the blueprints, so that you have to complete a load of missions to unlock a load of blueprints. So that's content. That's something for people to do that will, in theory, take hours and hours and hours. Unless people cheat, which maybe we can talk about in a minute. There is probably going to be a cheat way that people do that. And then also after that, you then have to go and mine all the stuff, and then you have to refine the stuff and then craft it. So there's quite a lot involved. I mean, I did a basic test on the stream the other day, and we tested how long does it take to go from deciding what you want to craft to going out and finding it, mining, refining, and then come back and crafting it. So I crafted a P4AR, the whole process, and it took me about 2 hours. And you'd definitely be faster than that if you knew exactly where you were looking for some of the minerals. I was trying to play the game as if external websites didn't exist. And unfortunately, when I did that, I looked at the journal. You know, there's a mining entry for journals in the journal for where the mining things is. Well, apparently that was completely wrong. That's out of date. So don't look at that. But on the star map, it does tell you where everything is. But 2 hours just to craft one single gun, and that wasn't looking for the best material. So I think there is content here for everybody to get stuck into.
It's interesting that you brought up a lot of good points there. God, I gotta break it all down because there's multiple questions I want to ask. But the first one is, we're talking about materials and crafting from the perspective of improving things. And you mentioned upgrading there. We can't upgrade yet, unfortunately. God, I wish we could, because that would change what I'm about to say next. But a big part of the process of this crafting, as you said, is finding the blueprints and then finding the materials. I think that makes it a not one session kind of thing, and that's good. It becomes more of a layer on top of the game that you play, rather than like a feature that you're going to try and play in one game session. But one of the quick ways to do crafting would be, instead of going out and mining, you go find the kinds of things that have the materials that you need for crafting, break those down and use them for crafting. How do you feel about that? Do you think anybody is going to find much use in that, since you're just going to get 500 level quality materials and you can't upgrade them?
Yeah, I think that's the major downside with dismantling coming in as it does. So yeah, you like you say, you dismantle say a weapon and you'll get 500 quality back from it, unless it was already crafted from higher quality materials, if that makes any sense. And so 500 quality, if you then chuck that into a crafting recipe in the fabricator, well, that will spit out a gun, for example, with 0 changes to its stats. That's like the base. And so there isn't much point dismantling, really. Like, if we're complete, as in, there's no gain to that. And because item recovery is still tier 0, it's all a bit kind of, once you've made one really good gun, you won't lose it. So you kind of just want to make sure you've got one really good gun of each type, maybe. People might approach this in different ways, but in my mind, what I'm planning to do is to go do some blueprint hunting, do some missions, unlock a load of blueprints, then think, well, maybe I'd like a really good version of that gun, and then I'll probably focus on going out finding really high quality, like 800 plus, maybe 900 plus materials for that specific gun. Maybe that will take a few different play sessions. Maybe that might take a week. Getting a really high quality version of, say, I don't know, the P4AR. That's the one that you get. You probably wouldn't choose that, but getting a really good one of those, and then, well, the thing is, when I've done that, because I won't lose that gun, there's no wear and tear, there's no degradation for the item, and the item recovery is still tier 0. I mean, I know there's ways that you can lose guns, but in theory, I don't lose that gun. And so at that point, and then am I done then with crafting because I've just done it once? Mm-hmm. Or do I set up a weapons shop and sell those for millions and millions of credits on external websites? And there's things that people might do, but it's going to be interesting.
How do you think people are going to respond to the degradation?
Because there's nothing in right now, and we don't know exactly how CIG are going to do it, do we? unless I'm missing something.
I mean,
You'll know more.
we know people will eventually lose their gear, right? Like
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
it won't last forever.
Yeah. Well, at least item loss will be a thing once. It won't be free to get your items back. Yeah. I mean, I predict that it won't be that long after this that we see tier 1 item recovery.
Yeah.
And we will see how people respond to it. We will probably have some people saying this is the best thing in the world, some people on the other side saying, I hate this CIG, why have you ruined the game? I want to fly myself into a star. There's all sorts of opinions that are going to happen with that. But a game where you can't lose anything, I think people are coming around to this opinion at least. A game where there's no loss isn't good. Like, it's not good for the long-term health of the game, probably.
Yeah. It's not. It's the funny thing that people will sometimes say when something gets added to a game. They'd be like, "How is this fun?" And you're like, well, losing stuff's not fun. It's not supposed to be fun. The whole point is it's not fun, so it makes you avoid it, and that's what makes the game more interesting. And that goes for like people will say that some kind of stuff like, "How is it fun that our ships can be disabled by shots?" I'm like, well, how is it fun that you can lose your health when you get shot at and die? It's just not the way it is. And I think there's going to be parts here that aren't quite as fun, and that's kind of the whole point of getting us to do crafting. But the biggest thing that feels like it's missing is refining, because having the ability to go out and break weapons and stuff down is great. I made a video about it. It's like my favorite thing to do. And then you get to go and start breaking them down to ingredients and craft other stuff with it. And that's good, I would say, for a little bit. But very quickly, you start to get that itch to go up in quality. And without being able to refine stuff that you can pick up, it does kind of poop on the dismantling loop a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think that you could almost argue that the dismantling is tier 0 or tier -1 almost. Like, it's just they've thrown it in alongside crafting, but it's not like any real thought has gone into how it works. Like, they've just gone, oh, we'll just put in 500 quality and it'll work out. Like, I don't think this will be the long-term future of dismantling. I think, I mean, it might last like this for a while, but I think eventually there'll be a proper system.
I hope not, dude. It's so much fun and I'm enjoying it so much, but I do know that what I'm thinking I might do is I might keep doing what I'm doing and then start just working with the miners in my org. I mean, like not kids, like the people who are getting the ore, and pay them for like really, really, really high quality material, and then use the stuff that I got from my regular weapons and just combine them so I can have slightly better upgrades. That makes me feel good. Makes me feel like I did something.
Yeah. I mean, so there's a whole question at the moment around what CIG do with low quality materials and how are they useful, what are they used for. At the moment, now that they put ammo in, so the ammo blueprints are in, they don't require any quality. So you can use all your low quality stuff to. You could literally become the Lord of War if you've watched Chris Roberts' movie there. You can literally become an ammo producer with all of your useless materials. So that's whether that's really an exciting thing. I'm sure somebody will do it. I mean, I would ask whether CIG at some point will meet. So you're wanting to go around in a bunker looting different guns. Would it be shocking if at some stage those guns that the NPCs were using were of different qualities? Some had better materials on them than others. Some of them had higher tier guns than others, and when you then dismantle them, well, you're not just getting 500 base back. That seems fairly obvious to me, is that some of the things you might find around the universe will not just be all basically 500. So we'll see how it goes. But again, I think dismantling is -1 really tier at this stage.
I hope that item recovery comes up. That's something that you had mentioned there. We know the future of item recovery. We're going back to a full loot design, and that's going to create a whole bunch of trouble for people. But we're looking at the solutions to that being built right now with crafting. And I really hope that does come sooner than later, like you mentioned. it seemed like they were working on it pretty thoroughly last year, so they must only be waiting for something else.
Yeah, we talked. I streamed this morning. We talked a little bit about this. I mean, we did a whole bunch of predicting what we might see this year, and with item recovery, in the monthly report that they mentioned it, they said they were looking at the work they needed to finalise this for an upcoming release. That's what they said in, I think, the last monthly report about item recovery tier 1. And so, to me, that says upcoming release. It's not that far off. It's not a year away, at least. So I wouldn't be shocked if it somehow is in 4.9 and maybe it will sneak into 4.8. I don't know, but I think now that crafting is in, there is a case to say, yeah, we kind of do want the next version of item recovery pretty soonish.
Yeah. They also had crafting be a big part of the flight model. It was a little out of left field, but last year, actually that's 2 years ago now, kind of. It was like November 2024. Rich Tyrer said that the situation with navigation in ships was going to change because of two things. He named crafting and quantum boost. So now that we have crafting, and we're hearing that they are testing the flight model in secret. Did you see that? You edited it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
If you guys don't know, 10 Pound edits a large part of the Space Tomato 2 videos. And what was it? Yogi had said that they are testing the flight model in secret. So like there's stuff going on that's not showing up in the monthly report, that they're not talking about on any Star Citizen lives or anything. I could see some stuff surprising us in at least 4.9. I don't know about 4.8. We'll see this week.
Yeah. No, I mean, the thing that's most shocking about the secret flight model testing is that it somehow stayed secret. Like, no, I don't think anybody knew. It's like it might be the most miraculous thing that has ever happened in the whole project, in that they did some testing under NDA and it didn't get leaked. It's beyond shocking.
Yeah.
But that's a good thing. That's a really good thing that it's happening behind the scenes, because I think a lot of people, whenever you talk to people about the flight model, very quickly people start chuntering about master modes and everything. I think people are long overdue and people have been waiting for a long time for the next a move forward, because I think everybody has accepted that what we have currently right now isn't ideal. And so, the faster they can get something into our hands that we can then probably shred again and tear to pieces again, I think the better. But we'll see. It's probably an ongoing journey, that one.
Agreed. So let's go back to crafting, because that's a really interesting topic, and it's been fun to see how people are engaging with it when this patch comes out. But like you said before, it is very focused around mining, and this has been a big update to mining. Do you think there are going to be more people who get dragged into mining because of crafting, or more people who get turned off of crafting because mining's included?
I would hope that people are open-minded enough to give mining a go. I mean, I personally am not somebody who spends all my time mining. I would class myself as a very bad miner. I'm not good. I'm likely to blow myself up and crash and all sorts of stuff. But I think ultimately mining is one of the more kind of rounded and polished parts of the whole game, and the gameplay itself is pretty good. And so even if you're like, well, I just want to shoot everybody, I just want to kind of exert violence on everything in the game, I think it's worth having a go. It's worth having a go at mining. I think it's quite fun. If you're open-minded, yeah, people being open-minded, it will be interesting. But I think it's good gameplay compared to some parts of Star Citizen. And so even if you're just doing a little bit and you just try it for a week or two, I would say give it a go, because I think it can be fun.
Agreed. And I think a lot of people are missing on FPS mining, which has become way more important over the last year. They added the golem in, they added more materials, they've started adding them to other locations. They, I think, they separated them, right? So like now there's FPS minables and ship minables. Like there's a lot more into FPS mining than even there was last year. And that's probably the best way to start getting into it because you can craft stuff with those materials. It's a lot smaller scale. You don't have to go out and get a ship yourself. I think CIG needs to lean a lot more into the FPS mining. They started adding more missions, but that could be the way to make people curious about it without making them feel like they need to learn a whole ship system.
Yeah, and so there are now mining missions in that do start with FPS mining, and so I mean, it's good. It's good stuff. And some of the changes that have come in with this patch are obviously there was a lot of talk about how CIG were moving to a 1 ore per rock system, which they then actually backtracked on. But the major change that's actually made mining a bit easier and a bit more palatable, I think, for a lot of people, is that now the scanning is a bit clearer in terms of what you're doing and what materials you're finding. And so the barrier to entry to ship mining itself isn't actually, I don't think, as bad as it has been. You can, and there's some good videos out there on YouTube. And so, yeah, I think everybody should give it a go. And if you're like, I just want to PvP people in a contested zone, well, you've got two choices. You can either pay somebody else to craft you a really good gun, and I mean, obviously we don't have proper trading balls in the game, but there's ways to do that. You can still buy it on a website, or you can try and do a player trade in game somehow. But you can either do that, or you can say, well, I'm going to go out and try and kind of craft this myself and do the mining and stuff. I would suggest giving it a go. At least everybody should give it a go.
Yeah, agreed. So it's fun to try out. What's I gonna ask, dude? It was more about crafting. Can't remember it though, so let's move on to the inventory. What do you think of the newest inventory, which is, for a lot of people, the biggest part of this update? It's like, I've been waiting a long time for this.
Yeah. No, in the lead up to this, obviously we had the stuff that we saw at CitizenCon, and we had the Evocati test, and in those tests, the Evocati test, I was like, whatever. It's such a minor part of the game. Like, it obviously will look better. It'll be a bit easier, but ultimately, what difference will it really make? But then when you actually play the game, rather than just test it in Evocati, when you go to the Rock Cracker stations and then you start to use the new inventory, you realise, I think it's a big quality of life update when you're actually playing the game. I mean, being able to loot multiple boxes and bodies at the same time, walking up to something, hitting I, not having to like aim your character down at a body on try and find the F prompt and like just like where is it? It's now it's so much better from a looting point of view. And yes, people will say it still doesn't load as fast as you want, and I think that's probably fair. It seems to depend on the server that you're on, or at least it's variable in my experience. Sometimes it's pretty snappy, sometimes it's not. But yeah, I think it's a step forward, even if it's not perfect still. What do you think? What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I agree. It's certainly a step forward. It's not what we need, but I think it's good for average play. The interesting thing is, if you look at a good inventory, I haven't played a lot of games with great inventory, so I'm not the best person to talk to about this, but I've seen some. I know Escape from Tarkov is one that people quite like, and I looked into that a little bit while I was doing some research for the video that came out this week. And one of the biggest things that seems like it makes an inventory useful is your own ability to adjust and format it. So,
yep,
not having like an auto stack of a grid. Being able to have spaces in between items, you can sort of categorize stuff, being able to drag windows custom in places. If you open a backpack, that backpack opening a window that you can move somewhere else on the screen to move stuff around. It's going to be important for folks who are in logistics in this game. And this should be a really complicated game when it comes to cargo and inventory. It just comes with the territory. So I certainly agree it's a step. There's going to need to be quite a bit more that's done to it over time, but this is great for the game we have now.
So what you're saying is it's a tier 0. Tier 0 of the new.
Well, the funny thing is like everybody thinks this is probably the second inventory, right? But even in the video, we
Yeah,
had like 4 different versions of the inventory we've had. And I would say this is still not even like, I mean, this is what, tier 2 maybe. Like there's a couple more iterations that need to happen on here. And
yeah,
for a lot
that's
of
fair.
people that's probably really frustrating cuz like we're so far into the project's time. Do you feel like they should have gotten their final inventory in right now? Is this good enough?
Uh, Again, the question is always, how long will it be that it stays like this? So when something
Yeah.
comes into the game, we don't know. Does that mean it stays in the game for the next 5 years? Do they iterate on it? Do we get the next version in the next patch? Unfortunately, in the history of the game, often the answer has been they get something in that's functional just about enough, and sometimes things haven't even functioned really that well, but they've just about worked, and then they've left them because they've got other priorities. And so I would argue that this could stay like it is because it's functional enough, and it is an improvement, and it doesn't look horrific, and it yeah,
The
it is a
bar,
step up.
dude.
The bar is low. The bar,
I
unfortunately,
think you
is low.
dropped it.
Yeah, it's crushed my feet. But unless it's in Squadron, I think the polish. It ultimately, a lot of what we're talking about here is polish, isn't it? And to really polish something from being functional to being great, that is what they're doing currently in Squadron. We hope they're polishing things that work and are good, and they're trying to get them to a level which is like acceptable for a AAA released game.
Yeah.
You'd have to say that with Star Citizen, they're not in any sort of polishing phase yet. That's probably a fair thing to say.
That dichotomy is going to be weird as they are getting us features
Yeah,
that we feel are more finalized, but in reality, they're not even at beta. And so they're not
yeah,
trying to polish and make things fancy and nice with but at the same time, then you have the teams coming on and they're talking about the things that they want to do in their own department, say audio, where they're like, we're going to do Doppler effects and realistic audio. And like, we're getting the
yeah.
footsteps to match the armor you're wearing. And you're like, okay, these things are kind of polished. Like the, the speed that this all works at is so confusing sometimes.
Yeah, and different departments within the company and within the game are doing wildly different things. Like, yeah, and working at different paces. And the ship, you'd argue actually that the ship teams and the ship department, the art department, and especially with the location department, with all the stuff that's coming out in 4.7, the Rockcracker stuff, they're operating at a very high level at this stage. Like the new locations are crazy from a kind of atmosphere point of view and art point
Yeah.
of view. And then you would look at other parts of the game and say, what's going on there? So what? So it is a weird thing. The game isn't like, again, because of the way they developed this, because of the way this journey has worked out, they've done it in front of us, and at various points, bits have kind of moved ahead and other bits have lagged behind, and we have
Yeah.
this game that is so uneven in terms of polish. Maybe is the way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And some teams really just fly. The planet team will just take
Yeah.
off, and then you got other departments like AI where you're like, it's the back end. It's the servers.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about ships. It's been a little while for Star Citizen fans. Some may be having aneurysms because I think we've now gone almost 4 weeks without a new ship. It's weird
Wow.
for CIG these days. We've got a classic coming back up in a new
Yes.
skin. Not even a new skin, it's a new ship, man. We saw the first leak of it in Inside Star
Yeah.
Citizen yesterday, and by the time a lot of you probably are listening to or watching this video, we'll see the whole ship. But the Aurora Mark II is coming, and there's so much to talk about. Why there's a Mark II, what Mark II means, why the Aurora, why are people even pumped for this? It's just a starter ship. What are your thoughts on it? What do you think it's going to look like?
Yeah, well, I'll give you my. You need to know this context about me. So I love the Aurora. It might be. It's probably my favorite ship. Across 4 accounts, because I have different accounts to do testing on, so I don't have to travel all around the game. They all own an Aurora. So the Aurora is my main ship that I use for like flying around the game doing testing and that. I have to say, and this is fine, CIG are allowed to make ships that some people like, some people don't like. I don't like the new one. I'm against it. It's too pointy. It's not enough like a brick for my liking. I just love the original, but that's totally fine. I'll keep my originals and it'll be fine. It does not look from the going through it frame by frame. It doesn't. The back side of it and maybe the actual hull looks like the Aurora, and then it does look like they've slapped some Scorpius wings on it or something like that. And there's obviously talk about it being more like the Ornithopter, the Dune ship, because there was that art, community art about it, about making an Aurora that looked like the Ornithopter a while back. So who knows?
Dude, I'm pulling that up. I'm going to drop that on the screen
Yeah,
for
go
you
on,
guys,
go on.
because this community art was like, this is like 8 years old. It's and people have been dreaming about the Aurora, not even them making a new Aurora. People just wanted this to be what the Aurora was. Like, people wanted to see the Aurora just suddenly start opening its wings like a Scorpius, and it's ridiculous. So let me pull it up here for anybody who's actually watching. That's really big. It does not need to be that big. Okay, so this is
gives the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And full credit. Gosh, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to find the original creator of this. It's so old. But
They could have left the project by now. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. This is from before 2020, and the reason I think this is just so weird is like, well, it's weird, but also
Yeah.
it's so fan theory. I appreciate like wanting to do this, and I hope that they do something that's fun with it. But this just feels so like, oh, we'll just take the old design and do something fun with it. It's a little bit lazy.
Yeah.
At the same time,
I mean, if this was a Shiv ship, I would be like, okay, that makes sense. As in, if it was a Shiv, the Grays Market one, sorry, where you just slap a load of ships together, I think that makes sense. This being an RSI design, if this is actually what it ends up looking like, is a strange. I think it's a strange choice. I mean, who knows? Maybe I'm just too obsessed with the original one, but yeah, it's an interesting.
You're stuck to the ugly.
Yeah, I'm stuck to the brick. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to take a screenshot or two here and bring up the Mark II now, so everybody can see that and see what we actually have to look at right now. Give me 1 second. In the meantime, while I'm doing that, why don't you talk about how you feel about the fact that they're remaking the Aurora? A lot of people believe that this means they're going to just go all out on Mark IIs for all ships. It is, just to do a quick explainer for everybody who doesn't know, the original Mark II was the Hornet. It was created because the original Mark I Hornet was in Squadron, and the idea behind it was that it got an upgrade because the Squadron one is outdated and they wanted a new one in the game. And historically, it would have been basically the original Hornet got retired. The new Mark II is in the game and purchasable. Anybody who had the Mark I has like a vintage. The other Mark II was the, what's it called? Zeus. Yeah, the Zeus. And that's just lore. That there was no other Zeus, right? So this is the third Mark II they're adding to the game. And at this point, it feels like a slippery slope. What do you think?
Okay, here's my hot take on this. I think it's fine because CIG, because it's taken so long for this game to come out. In the real world, you know, that place where we live, where we're not sticking our face in a monitor, staring at spaceships. Yeah, it's horrible. There, in the time that this game has been out, there will have been multiple versions of lots of different cars. So I don't even know if Ford make the Mondeo anymore. Like, but I remember when I was growing up, there's multiple different versions of a Ford Mondeo, and they all have slightly different looks and engines, blah blah blah. Because CIG have taken 100 years to make this game, well no, 15 years, whatever. In the time frame that we've been playing this game, it would make sense that different manufacturers would do updated versions of their ships. So I don't massively care, as long as the old versions gets gold passes, I don't think I care that much. I think
what if it continues?
What do you mean, like a Mark III?
What if we have 50 Mark IIs in a few years? I mean, that'd be crazy, but
What of all? They'll do a Mark II for all ships.
yeah, they're like Mark II Reclaimer, Mark II Constellation, Mark II Gladiator, just all the old ships.
Would you be surprised if they do that? I don't know. It depends. If so, say like the Reclaimer, the Mark One is no good and is useless, then it doesn't really work to just do a Mark II because the first one's rubbish. If though the originals maybe doesn't work so much for, it's not like for big industrial like boats, like actual ships in the sea in the real world. I don't think we're all going to see the launch of the Mark II whatever ship to see like a cargo ship. As in, I think certain designs can stay as they are and it's not that big a deal. But maybe for the more kind of looks-based ships, so like the racers and things like that, the M50, you'd expect them to do an M50 Mark II at some point just to freshen up the design. But they'll be by the time this. Here's what we should really say. I'm throwing myself under the bus here. You can all shout at me in the comments. By the time this game is actually turned off, if we're lucky, that's like 20-25 years from now. There should be Mark IIIs. There might be even Mark IVs for some of these ships. The time frame will be so long that they'll just keep refreshing some of these ships. I don't think that's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing.
Oh boy.
I think that's what they'll do.
One, okay. So you're not too worried about that.
I think CIG have set a precedent, and I think that the reality is they probably can make money by selling updated versions of the ships. Maybe we'll see with this Aurora. We'll see how well this sells, because starter ships aren't really that interesting to a lot of people. Collectors will probably buy one, but will people buy a starter ship that's been updated, or will it just not really make much money? We don't really know. We don't know.
I think people got a lot of. There's a lot of love for the Aurora and a small, good-looking ship. As we get further into the game, small ships are going to get more interesting to people, right? Having a nice ship that's hard to detect, fits everywhere, carries a little bit of cargo. People are going to start to see the value in those more. But the fact that it's a Mark II, I think it's interesting. They could have made a different ship from Aurora or from RSI and just said it was like the Aurora, right? The fact that they call it the Aurora Mark II changes how people perceive it, changes how people are going to react to it, how they feel about the game itself, and I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
What I'm most interested in though is everybody has caveats as to whether it's okay or not. For you said it needs to be getting a gold standard. I guess that's a question for the chat though, for you guys. What would make this okay? And what doesn't make it okay? Because obviously it's not right or wrong. Like you said, the game's been out long enough that it makes sense to have other models, and other models can be sold, bring in more money, bring in more enjoyment, more fun. But then you have to look at the old model and wonder what's happening to that and the people who bought it. Do you think that Alpha 4.7 is the best patch we've ever had?
Oh, fun. We're going from fun questions to fun. It might be the most impactful patch we've had since 4.0, probably. That's probably fair to say. Like I said earlier, I think it lays the groundwork for a future of the game that I think is quite exciting. And so we might look back like we would look back at certain patches and say good or bad things. Like we obviously look back at 4.18 and say, oh, goodness me. With 3.18, sorry. But with this, we might look back and say, well, 4.7 was the start of a progression towards... I mean, base building is part of it, isn't it? As in, crafting is a prerequisite in some ways for base building, crafting all the different bits. And you think as they work this system out, as they add bigger items that we're crafting into the game, we're eventually getting to bases and ships. And so this might be a bit of a line in the sand where we say that was a really good step towards where it ends up. But whether it's going to depend on people, like we talked about a bit earlier, depend on people's play styles, whether they love this. Like, some people might just love this. You could see some people fully engrossing themselves in this for the next 2 months, becoming a master crafter or whatever, and just having a great time. And some people might be like, whatever, I don't care. So
Yeah.
It probably won't be the same for everybody.
Some people definitely do not care. I've seen that. Well, let's talk about how they're delivering these features then. This all kind of comes off of a year of no features. There were a couple of feature drops there, but no big feature deliveries, and they were clear about not wanting to do that. That being said, they did tell us they were going to be using the EPTU last year, and they didn't. So that was like, oh, things aren't really moving forward how they planned. This year, that has changed. We've seen engineering, AI advancements, Gen 12, crafting, inventory. I think that's about it. But like some pretty big feature advancements all coming into the game in the last like 6 months off of EPTU. You feel like their whole plan for that is working? Are they getting delivered into the game in more stable states and not being as disruptive?
Well, we'll probably only be able to tell once crafting is live, because sometimes things work fine on the PTU and in EVCARTI, and then it all falls to pieces when it goes live. But at the moment, crafting looks like it works pretty well, and it's quite straightforward. And so, yeah, you'd have to say, again, the speed in which we've got crafting in and the inventory in this year is a good sign, and it's a good use of the EPTU. My only frustration with it a bit is, so a couple of weeks ago in This Week in Star Citizen, they mentioned that they were going to test the I can never remember which way around it is, the new transit system, or the transport system, whichever one is the new one. So they said they were going to do a test of that, and then they just didn't. I think partly because 4.7's EVCARTI was a bit rough at the start. There seems to still be a limit to what CIG can push out for us to test at once. So it doesn't seem as though once 4.7 was in EVCARTI and in Wave 1, it didn't seem like they had really the bandwidth to also at the same time test the transit system. And so it still seems like there's a bottleneck there, and that we can't just be testing things all the time. Like, it's not, but maybe that's for good reason. But I'm assuming the publishing guys, the guys in Austin who are putting out all the patches, and there's only so much they can do, would be my guess. But yeah, it's working a lot better than it did last year, that's for sure. They're actually using the EPTU, so that's a good thing. But based on what they've done so far this year, you've got to say, well, they're heading in the right direction. And if they keep using it like this for things like item recovery, or things like the social tools, the transport stuff that we talked about, then yeah, the plan in theory makes sense, doesn't it? Test some things with a smaller group before they even go into a patch branch, and it will help the process move a bit smoother. It sounds like it makes sense, and it kind of has worked with crafting at least. So yeah, hopefully.
Does it feel like things are different the way that they're testing now? It's less about needing to get numbers and more about actually diving deep into the gameplay first?
It depends what they're doing, I think. I think for the transport system that we're going to end up testing, that will be about numbers. They'll just need brute force numbers to test that to see if it works or not. But yeah, the way the crafting kind of came in fairly, apart from the first EVCARTI test where nobody had any blueprints and therefore couldn't do any testing. Apart from that, the testing went pretty well. Like, it worked. The feature felt fairly well polished before it came to EVCARTI, and so it wasn't an absolute disaster for like a while in EVCARTI before it then progressed. So yeah, I think you've got to hope that they do learn some lessons and they do get better. Like, it's fine to be like, yeah, the project's taken 15 years or whatever. You'd hope at this stage some things would be getting better and more efficient, and hopefully the way they test things, they'd be getting better.
Like, we haven't launched a game yet, but we have learned a couple things. I
hope.
do agree, and I think seeing signs of not just the EPTU, but also the fact that they're testing the flight model in secret, and like you said, it stayed secret. We didn't. Not only did we not get footage or details of it, we didn't even know the test itself was happening.
Yeah.
And I think it is showing that they're getting more serious about dialing things in and making sure that they're actually building something that makes sense as opposed to just constantly testing features. Like the whole 3.x era with hindsight really does feel just like they had a persistent experience that they could experiment with, and they were just like throwing stuff in to see if any of it sort of made it more fun.
Yeah.
Do you think the flight model, which is being tested in the closed environment right now, you think they're going to be able to build a good flight model for Star Citizen?
The $1 million or maybe the $1 billion question.
Yeah.
The thing with this is that some people, depending on your preference, depending on your game play style, what you like, somebody is always going to be upset about this. We obviously have had in the past fairly hard. Well, actually, let me go right back to the start. I remember playing 0.8 Arena Commander back in the day. I quite liked that in my Aurora. I was playing with my Aurora LN, and I was flying around, and I was doing okay in my Aurora then. And it was very arcadey back then. The flight model was very arcadey, and it's obviously gone through different iterations in that time. People at the moment are kind of looking back to the last version of the flight model with the kind of bigger speeds and the more kind of skillful play at the top end. The high end players were quite skillful, and looking back at that and saying, we miss that. What we've got now is dumbed down and rubbish. But there'll be some people who, maybe like me, crash into spaceships every now and again, into space stations every now and again, and they think, well, maybe having it slightly isn't what it was isn't a bad thing. So there'll be a variety of viewpoints on this. I think ultimately, whenever there's an argument on the internet, there's probably some people on one side and some people on the other. Can CIG turn this into a good flight model? Only time will tell, but you would think that as long as we keep giving them money and they keep developing, eventually they'll get to something that's half decent, you'd hope. Maybe I'm being optimistic there. The thing is that the average Star Citizen player couldn't tell you what. We could all come up with our ideas for what the greatest flight model was.
I can't.
Well,
Don't look at me.
well, yeah, fair. Some people wouldn't, but some people would have a go, and they'd probably be wrong. Like there'd be elements maybe that they just not account for. You've got to say, just keep working on it until you've nailed it, and that's not much fun whilst the game is in the state it's in now with master modes. People just don't like it, but the only hope is that eventually they just come across something that is a middle ground that keeps, because ultimately this is the problem. The game is a spaceship game and other things, but you do have to fly a spaceship. Most people do, at least. And so they have to come up with a flight model that appeals to a wide enough audience so that they will play the game and spend money on spaceships. That's behind the scenes. That's partly what it is. And they can't come up with something so hardcore that your average gamer just can't do it, can't fly. And so that's upsetting to some people. That sounds disappointing because they want the real skill in the flight. But I think the reality is they're wanting a game that appeals to millions and millions of players, and having a hardcore flight sim probably isn't that. That's going to get some comments in the comment section, but I think ultimately they're chasing after a middle ground. Ultimately, I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying that's what I think they're doing.
Get him.
Caveats. Don't come for me.
I don't disagree. I actually think that's even more true for Squadron too.
Yeah.
I'm guessing the Squadron flight model is actually a lot easier than the Star Citizen one, because they're going to need people to be able to basically pick it up with a controller and do okay playing. And no, that does not mean I think that they, want to launch it on console immediately. I just think Chris wants it to work on controller, and they need to make sure that if people are going to have that plugged into their computer, you don't want to hop into a game and then in 10 seconds be like, well, the controls suck. I'm not going to play.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you've got a point.
Yeah, they've spent so much money and so much time, and they haven't done that to make a tiny niche experience that only appeals to a couple of 100,000 people. They've spent all this time and money to try to make a game that has mass market appeal, whether that's ego from Chris Roberts or just business, like they want to make loads of money. They just haven't spent all this time and money to be like, oh yeah, we've got concurrency of. They want mass market appeal.
See, but that's an interesting point because, like is being mentioned in the supporter comments right now, um, said if they don't want a complex, realistic flight model, they shouldn't have promised one. And I do think that there's something to be said about the angle that they took when they started this game. Everything changes, and there's some acceptance that needs to be had about that. But the idea of what the game was supposed to be in terms of being really complex for a niche player, for a certain group of people who really wanted this thing, is now expanding. And it's kind of like, okay, what about those people that were supposed to be getting this game that was built for them? You know, the niche
Yeah.
game that was going to be able to pull in a lot of money because it's crowdfunded and not have to worry about appealing to a lot of people because it doesn't have to pay back a publisher or something.
Yeah. I mean, again, without wanting to get myself in more and more trouble, would you argue if you were to look at other flight sims or other space sims on the market, you'd probably still say that Star Citizen is a bit, its flight model is not completely arcadey
Yeah.
compared to some of the other options out there. But I do take that point. Yeah, some people were here for the complex 6 degrees of freedom flight. If you backed this game at certain points, you would have done a free fly, maybe turned on the game, and you would have been flying in space in a way that made you think, "Wow, this game is really going for some like complexity and some like physically based flight and all that sort of stuff." And this fit at various points, if you turned on the game, you would have thought, "Oh, this is going to be quite a complex, meaty kind of flight system."
Yeah.
And I think those people are right, maybe, to be upset that it's kind of moved away from that a bit, maybe to chase after mass market appeal. I mean, ultimately, we don't know this, but of the people who spend the most money on the game, I wonder how many of those really want a really complicated flight model. Like if you spent £20,000 $20,000 or whatever on the game, like that sort of person doesn't necessarily want deep complex flight. They might be more likely to just want to fly around enjoying their spaceships. Like we could dip into all sorts of territories that will get me even more trouble. But there's things like a lot of people who are in that sort of boat, the more kind of whaley type people. Another thing they were told was that they'd be able to solo fly their big capital ships because they'd have AI crew. So they're going to be angry about that as well. So there's lots of different people who can rightfully be angry about different things that this project has done.
Yeah.
But I think I wonder what the data would show if CIG was to run some polling or whatever, like in terms of what do people want from the flight model. I wonder actually what that would be.
I think it would be very interesting to get a 100% answered poll from everybody who's back to this, or at least who's currently paying attention as to what kind of space game they're looking for. Because
yeah,
they keep saying this, we want to make a game for everyone, which is just, I mean, you can say that. I think it's a little silly to say something like that because it can be taken so many different ways, but making a game for everyone obviously means that you are gonna miss what you're trying to aim for because it's not possible. And I think that they have definitely attracted people from all different kind of places because of that approach. And I think that happened without them pursuing, like, it's just the fact that you can fly a spaceship, shoot a gun, do some mining, move some boxes, all in the same game. Obviously, they're going to get different people, but because of that, everyone wants different stuff out of the space game. And it kind of goes back to what you said about them scaling back to do more focused testing for this kind of stuff because most of us may not be able to tell them exactly what they should do. And I kind of lost my train of thought, but like the idea that every single person has something that they want to get out of this game is a little bit of a complicated thing to grapple with when you want to make it good enough that people stick with it.
Yeah. The risk of making a game for everybody is that you ultimately create a game for nobody because you don't commit in one direction enough, so that there's like a meaty experience in one direction enough, and so everybody looks at it and looks at the game and think, well, there's bits of this I like, but ultimately it doesn't really come together in one big experience. The dream side of it, though, on the positive, is that you shoot so far for the stars, you actually do end up with something. I mean, that will be, I think, Chris Roberts' argument is that by trying to create something so spectacular and so ambitious, well, even if you don't quite nail everything, you still end up with something that's really impressive. And I think that's probably why still a lot of us are still here, because like there's still a chance it turns into something amazing, even though they're gonna. There's parts of the game that I look at and think, I don't really like that, but on the whole, it's so ambitious and there's so much potential still after all these years that maybe it will be amazing somehow. I don't know.
Well, a lot of people over the years have always said things like, if they even release 70% of what they've said or 50% of what they've promised, it will be amazing, which is the kind of thing you say when you think they're still going to hit all the stuff they're going for. And then you know, they actually start dropping it and they go down to 50%. You're like, are you freaking kidding me? But it is still kind of true. They set their sights so big that even falling short still creates something that there's not another experience like it. Not saying that it's reasonable the way they did it, but that's how a lot of projects go, from investments to politics to construction to space travel. It's just like people sell big visions and then scale back, and it's kind of a crappy way to do business, but here we are.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that they have in their favour is that so far we've given them so much money that they haven't really had to turn away from any of their bigger ideas yet. And so maybe as long as they keep...
I don't know. Where's Quantum?
Yeah. I'd probably argue that is not that wasn't one of the core gameplay parts of the game. But yeah, no, you're right. The thing is, they haven't officially turned away from it, have they? They've said it's turned. This is their thing.
Just tone.
When CIG, well, yeah, but they don't tell us when they've really changed their mind on something until way down the line when maybe the blow is a bit softer. But if suddenly they were like a lot of games, and again, obviously we've had the big example with Ashes of Creation just collapsing. Like, that's an example of how it can go badly wrong if you don't quite make it and then you run out of money. So far, the signs are that CRG aren't going to run out of money, and therefore they just keep going. And the only thing that can collapse is ourselves when we die of old age. Like, that's the only way this can go wrong at this point. It's like, if we drop dead, then we're out of the project. But they'll just keep going because we keep giving them all the money. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Every day somebody new is building a PC.
Yeah.
That might be slowing down nowadays, but
not so much at the moment.
That was the big sort of thing for Squadron. And people are like, oh, everybody would buy Squadron's already gotten it. It's like, well, no. Tons of people are getting into gaming for the first time. Tons of people are getting their PC game for the first time. So there's a lot of potential sales out there. Following up on this topic, I've got another hot one for you. Given what we've been talking about here, the original goal of this game was to build the best damn space sim ever. That was what Chris said.
Yep.
You feel like they're still going for
that? I think they're still going for that, but they're probably still going for that plus a load of other things, aren't they? I think if you had to...
I'm not ambitious at all.
No, I think if you were still to like try and pin Chris down on that, he'd say, yeah, we still want to be the best damn space sim ever. It's grown beyond just space sim, hasn't it? So yeah. Again, there'd be arguments around what are the key components of a space sim, and flight might be one of those that's big up on that list. But yeah, I think that's still in there. That's still in their kind of aim. What CIG are trying to do, but it's obviously got it's probably turned more into building a great MMO maybe in the last since the Rich Tyra kind of era has begun. There seems to have been a kind of MMO-ification of the game over that time, in terms of making it more like a game, whereas for a while it just felt like it was like there was all this stuff that this project was about, and there wasn't really a clear idea of how it would be formed into any sort of actual game. Whereas now with Rich Tyra and the vision for 1.0, it's kind of a bit clearer what they're aiming for in terms of bringing all the features together, and obviously the story and the fighting over the pyro stuff. Like it looks on paper more like a game now. Whether again it gets to that and whether it reaches 1.0 and how much of that changes between now and 1.0, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it still is. Ultimately, it's still a space sim, and you might already argue that on some levels it's the best space sim ever. Blah blah blah. But we're not near the end. Is the problem? We don't know what it will actually look like when we get to. We don't even know what the end looks. We have no 1.0 isn't the end. In some ways, 1.0 is the beginning. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah. The 2-decade beginning.
Yeah.
So there are two paths, right? There is the path that they've been taking of trying to create a space sim, a systemic, very deep, complex, interactive space sim. And then there's the other path of just trying to create something that people want to play. And they're not really mutually exclusive, right? But there was some point at which it felt like they switched from making a space sim and not being able to do it that well to making a space MMO and starting to succeed at it. Do you think that this period of time where it felt like they were succeeding could still exist? Like, do you think, man, I'm not asking this correctly. Do you think the switch from trying to build a space sim to trying to build a more game-like space MMO as you described correlates to the fact that they're more successful? Or do you think they always would have reached this point where it would have just sped up and started to feel more like a game?
That's a good question. I mean, are we defining last year and the content as the time they that it kind of really started to try and feel more like a game? Would we say that's?
I would say like since that 2024 CitizenCon where they laid out 1.0, it felt like they started to work towards that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. You'd argue that obviously from a financial point of view, last year was much more successful, and so that's down to the content that came into the game. That's down to selling more ships. A combination of those, it started to feel a bit more like a real game. I suppose maybe if you think about something like Elite, and you'd say, would we say Elite is a good example of a space sim? Like that's
it does the space sim thing.
Yeah, and so the difference maybe between something like Elite and Star Citizen from the MMO side of thing is more of the theme parky content that the CIG have put in over the last year. Like there's nothing like the Onyx facilities or the Worm or the Rockbreaker things in Elite,
Right.
As far as I'm aware. They're kind of rides that you go on and you do the content and it's all fun, and it feels a bit more like theme park games, MMO games in some ways. The problem is, again, because this game has been sold to everybody and appeals to everybody, some people love the theme park stuff and love just doing all these fun experiences with big set pieces and things. Some people are like, well, I just give me the sandbox. I want to just have my own fun. I want to give me the tools, give me the sand to create my own fun. And so, again, we're in another conversation where one person says, I love this, one person says, I hate this. And CIG have to somehow cater to both of those people. And so, again, I think until we get to something past 1.0, we won't know if it all comes together to be a real success, or if at this point they're just kind of stringing us along a bit. Like, are they just like giving us stuff to hold on to us, so that we're still engaged and we're still spending money? I think the vision for 1.0 looks solid. It looks like a game I want to play, but until we get there, we won't probably know how well it all comes together.
Yeah. How do you feel about it personally? The direction, the success of it. What do you think was the better call?
I don't know. I think it's hard to know whether they did make a pivot, like we're kind of saying. Like, did they change their direction, or did what they were doing just evolve in this direction and it naturally would have anyway? Like, it's hard to know without being in the room with them. Like, did Rich Tyra take over from Top Happy and say, look, we've got to change something here. We've got to do something different here. Like, we're wildly speculating here, but we don't know whether he came in and said, in order to take this forward, we've got to make some changes and we've got to change direction. The thing is, they still in 1.0 promise but all of the things that we've talked about. So there's still sandbox gameplay, there's still theme park gameplay, there's still everything. And so it's not like they've changed their vision, really. They've just, over the last year, maybe focused more on one side of it. But again, it's kind of, in some ways, it's not an easy question to answer until we can look back and say, well, it kind of worked or it didn't work.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that we are talking about systems that are sandbox focused, but those still end up getting kind of second place mentions compared to the big narrative things that you focus on, like crafting. Technically helps to turn those theme park rides into part of the sandbox.
Yeah, crafting itself is a big sandbox feature. I suppose it's because it is tier 0. It's quite limited in its first implementation that it doesn't feel like it maybe changes the whole game. But again, like we said, in the future, we may look back at this crafting coming in here and say this was the start of a big shift towards sandbox tools, especially if social tools come alongside, base building makes its way in. Suddenly you look and say there's a lot of sandbox to play with, but we'll see.
Please, Sandbox, please give us the social tools. Please let me talk to my friends. That's... Oh, man. That will be great. But yeah, I think CIG benefited from having an untapped market. Like, you couldn't really name any FPS space games with spaceships involved in 2015. You could do it. There were a couple. Some of them were dying or dead. Some of them were in works and maybe not looking like they were going to succeed. But CIG was able to come in here and basically talk about living in space from all kinds of different angles. And they captured so many different people that way. Now they have to actually deliver on it. But it's like perfect. It's kind of perfect timing, perfect situation for Star Citizen to have worked out the way it did. Yeah.
And because they've pushed hard on the tech side of things, they still have that unique selling point in some ways. It still stands on its own as a concept, Star Citizen, and from a tech side, the scale, especially as they maybe push on quasi-dynamic meshing at some point this year, that they still have anybody in the game who plays games. I think once CIG have got to a stage where it's kind of more finished, they'll probably still look at that and they'll look at the game and say, oh wow, that's kind of crazy what that game can do. It still can do things that no other game engine and nobody else is trying to do, partly because it would take another company 15 years and $1 billion to make. But CIG, the bonus of them doing all the hard graft that they've done to get the engine where it is now is that they're ahead of everybody else. Whether other companies will catch up, we'll see. But for now, they've got a big tech advantage over quite a few other game studios.
Yeah, don't pull a Tesla. Sorry, that's a inside joke. Next question. This one should really be exciting to a lot of people. Do you think that CIG is going to, at any point soon, start adding exclusively non-combative focused situations? So I don't mean a mission where you go to a place and there's a chance of like NPC combat. I mean like something where CIG is basically expecting that there won't be danger to meet the player.
Man, you're just trying to set me up with all the hot topics here, aren't you?
Yeah, dude.
Get people shouting at me. So you're saying, so what you're saying, as a group, we might go off and do an activity that has no combat whatsoever, and it's like completely safe.
Yeah, so like, I don't know,
Okay.
simple deliveries, medical help, cargo lifting, just stuff where like pizza deliveries in city centers.
Pizza deliveries. Well, the evidence from what they're putting into the game over the last year maybe would suggest not anytime soon. Like, I think a lot of people from a mining point of view of Rockcracker were hoping that Rockcracker might be something where you can come in as like a mining crew and just kind of toddle around and do your mining and then have a nice chilled time. And the reality is, it's like there's a guy there, there's an NPC there.
Yeah.
Have you done the contested Rockcracker? At the end of contested Rockcracker, the Vandals show up to blow you up.
Yeah.
Like there's all sorts of combat everywhere. So yeah, it's the evidence would suggest that they are still trying to. They're not done scratching that itch of combat. But I mean, there are things in the game where you can do delivery missions, and you're very much unlikely to see combat. But
not really narrative focused though.
Not narrative focused. No, I would like them to try that. It would be a challenge, I think, for them to do that. To try. Oh, say again.
I said clearly it'd be a challenge.
It clearly be a challenge. Yeah, I'm understating that. But I mean, maybe you could go into maybe they could create a location where there's been like some new fauna has been on the loose and they've caused chaos and everybody's injured and you go in as a medic and all you've got to do is run around. Well, then I suppose you still have to shoot the fauna, wouldn't you? I don't know.
Shoot the fauna.
It's obviously harder than it looks.
Everything ends in death, right?
Everything has death. Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it's just pizza. Maybe the major cities should open up pizza shops that you just have to go and deliver to people's. On ArtCorp, you can just land on rooftops and just deliver people pizza. They would maybe they'd argue things like mining are non-combat. Maybe that's what their argument would be.
Well, I mean, like Rockcracker, right? They have like they've said, oh yeah, we want to pay people to throw stuff away. We want to let people do deliveries in cities. So I'm being a little bit unfair here because we know that they want to do those things, but it is starting to get old. Like I was even last year, I was like, okay, guys, they're not going to make everything combat. This is just where they are right now because it's easy. It's easy context. It's easy entertainment. They didn't have a lot of game systems. Now that we're seeing engineering coming in, we're starting to get more outpost locations possibly. They're doing resource sort of like fix the component stuff. I feel like it's time to start turning up the temperature on getting stuff that's not gun focused because it's nice to just have a chill session.
Yeah, and as somebody put in the chat there, will the municipal works be mostly combat free? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see about that.
Going by what they say doesn't really work because they said that FPS was a secondary activity in the Rockcracker facilities, and it's not.
No, it's not. Yeah. I mean, the idea that underneath Levski, there's a bunch of pirates just hanging out in the kind of inner workings of the asteroid, shooting everybody, doesn't really make any sense from a lore point of view. It's like, but the question is, can they come up with good enough puzzle gameplay to get you to go through a dungeon experience purely solving puzzles? Yeah, that is quite hard, I think, and so there'll be animals in the sewer. Yeah, there'll be some things to shoot. Yeah, maybe I keep joking that if Star Citizen, if CIG start developing Squadron 43 straight after Squadron 42, I'm gonna lead a riot outside of the studio. We keep joking on stream. We're gonna take our placards and we're gonna say enough is enough. And if it gets really bad, we're going to break in and steal all their RAM. But maybe this is what we need. Maybe we need a protest outside of CIG's office for our non-combat friends. Maybe we all need to turn up and just start protesting. No more guns. I don't want to kill anything anymore. Leave the Copion alone.
I feel like a protest outside of CIG's office would get co-opted so quickly.
Oh, it'd be so funny.
What do we want? Star Citizen. When do we want it? 15 years ago.
Oh dear, there would be a lot of things to protest about. To be fair, yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like part of the skill of doing good gameplay that doesn't have combat is being able to introduce that combat in ways, or I guess that's stupid. Not that doesn't have combat, but that doesn't focus on combat, is introducing combat in a way that's believable, right? Pirates, why are these pirates trying to stop me from starting an asteroid cracking base? What do they have to gain from it? But also controllable. I think the FPS would work if you could go to this location and you could say, hey, the people who aren't trying to get into FPS combat, this part of the facility is completely abandoned. This is all just moving stuff around and repairing. You guys get to that and do the mining. I'll take the fire team and we'll go into these rooms and we'll clear out the objectives that you need to. But as of right now, it's still like, hey, you want to go do rock cracker? I don't have any guns with me. Like, okay, just stay in the back and watch us.
Yeah. I mean, there's a chance. Let's now turn to a more positive focus on this. There's a chance that with the StarTech locations that are going to come with Planet Tech, there will be opportunities for, like we talked about, ground vehicle delivery missions between different outposts. Mm-hmm. And so there is a chance that because am I hallucinating this, or did they not talk about the idea that in the distribution centers there'd be sometimes just missions where you just move your boxes around? Yeah. Did they say that at one point? That might even be in the game, but I don't think anybody's ever been to a distribution center actually to check out in the last 6 months, because
they said it originally when they were introducing them, and then I think it might have been Benoit. No. It was the industrial dudes. Thorsten and Elliot said that they were going to do a starting courier mission where you just deliver stuff from one part of the distribution center to the other.
Yeah. So okay. So they just said it recently. Yeah. So that would make some sense. There's opportunities to maybe go into a distribution center and just be like an Amazon kind of box mover in some ways, like in like a distribution center, or taking certain resources from one location, StarTech location, to another one that's quite low. Because again, the new idea behind StarTech is that these clusters, which has got multiple locations quite close to each other that are linked, and the idea that missions might be able to go between one to the other. And like repair missions in those environments. It isn't actually that hard to come up with a play session for like a couple of hours where you've got somebody moving between different kind of locations locally and then giving them different non-combat things to do.
Yeah.
Whether CIG will do that, we'll see. There's always a chance that somebody will be there with a gun and NPC will start shooting you. That seems to be the kind of joke, is that they just can't not have one.
There's always some kind of freaking English bloke who's yelling about me killing his cousin, and you can't get away from me. Stop hiding. And I'm like, dude, I just walked through the door. These guys are crazy, man. But they've been out in Pyro for too long, so I don't blame them.
Yeah, the sun, the flares. Oh no, wait, where are the flares? Anyway, let's not talk about
that. Oh God, yeah, we could talk about. We just had a couple episodes with Astro Historian. We had a nice talk about all that stuff. Go check that out if you have any bones to pick about Pyro. We'll see. All right, I want to wrap things up with some predictions, as we like to do. We'll get your 6-month prediction, but first I want to hear what you think of 4.8. By the time a lot of people watch or listen to this episode, 4.8 first details will be out. So, at risk of being proven wrong,
I think the 4.8 details are already out. I think we just missed them. So I did this. We looked at this on stream this morning. We were looking at 4.8. What my prediction originally was, I wonder if Planet Tech will somehow sneak in, because in the star map now for Nyx, the planets are on the star map, and is that a sign that they're coming? But we first watched the ISC. In the ISC, Jared says the tactical strike groups are coming in spring, and then later he says 4.8 is coming in May, and so the tactical strike groups are coming in 4.8. Like there's no way around that. He plainly says it. We went back loads of times and just checked that actually that was what he said. But tactical strike groups are currently, I think, the plan for 4.8. And that means they're not probably going to be instance. And actually, when we look back through the CitizenCon footage of it, they don't mention that it would be instanced.
I mean,
And
I think
so,
everyone assumed. Like, look
yeah,
at it. Look
yeah,
at it.
everybody assumed it had to be instanced in order for it to work. And my prediction from a performance point of view is that it will be a slideshow for a lot of people, because anytime there's big combats with lots of ship, it's a slideshow. But that's what they said in the ISC. He said tactical strike groups is coming up in spring, and then later he said 4.A is going to be in May. And yeah, that would be my guess.
I had been hearing about that, and I missed it when I watched through that.
Yeah, same.
That is, it's a little bit concerning, because for the own reasons I came up with in my head. This isn't official information, but you look at last year, the way they presented all these things. Clearly, the strike groups were the biggest, took the most work to do, the most fragile, that could be sort of messed up with by other people, and the most likely to seem like it would be instance.
Yeah,
So,
but it wasn't in the instancing section of CitizenCon.
Yeah.
So
and that means that municipal works aren't coming, which means instancing technology isn't ready. Do you think they had to move some stuff around because instancing is taking a little longer to get working?
Very hard to guess. I am going to say no. To me, the instancing stuff seemed like it would be hard for that to happen early in the year anyway.
Yeah.
So my guess is that, even though what they said when they showed at CitizenCon, the tactical strike groups, was that this is a very, very early look. I think because there's no actual confirmation there, as far as I saw, anybody when we were watching this earlier said nobody could see any. There's no confirmation that it was planned to be instanced anyway. So my assumption was always, if I'd known that back in the day, back when this came out at CitizenCon, I think I would have said, well, obviously that must come, because I think instancing is dependent on having all the stuff they need for dynamic server meshing, and that sounds like a big job. So I assume this was always the plan. We just missed it. I think it was a very casual drop in the middle of ISC that I don't think a lot of people picked up on. It was very very small thing. But yeah, the question is what comes with it, because you would really, really hope that for a big org operation that the first drop of their new social tools would come as well. So my prediction, not everybody agreed with me when I said this earlier, I think the first part, so remember Benoit split the social tools drops into various sections, but we looked at this earlier and he said the first bit was a reworking basically of the Comlink app. So there would be what he described as rich party info, friend or foe tracking, and an updated chat app.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to really put myself out there, I'm saying that will come alongside tactical strike groups in 4.8. That would be my prediction. And then, I mean, it depends how much the thing that we also said was that because tactical strike groups is ship combat stuff, there's going to be the Hammerhead Gold Pass, the Hammerhead variant. You got the Ironclad Assault around that sort of time. Will they sell a small fighter like the Raylan's coming at some point in that patch branch as well? So there's all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. It's certainly the social tools thing. You know how I feel about that. I mean, I freaking gung ho. I want them out, but the latest loading screen for 4.7 does have me thinking maybe that wasn't talking about social tools. Maybe that was talking somehow about data running. I don't know how the heck.
It was about data running. Yeah.
Freaking weird.
That's bad of them. They did a bad job. I think we can officially say they messed up there, in that they gave a load of loading screens that suggested to us that social tools are just on the horizon, and then Benoit comes on the screen for that LCL and says, we're kind of working on it. It'll come some point this year, and then the next loading screen is like, it's about data running after all. Like, I think they messed up. I think they realised, we've misled everybody here, and that's why we've had this latest one. But
which is partially
you're not confident
on
then?
us, like just like the strike groups. Like, it's all on us for trying to read what's going on, and we'll get things wrong. Happy to admit that, but it's just, it is also weird, the idea that we might actually get the strike group thing without social tools. It's going to be a complete disaster if we don't have social tools to be able to use. Even if you have everybody in your Discord group that's getting involved in this thing, we don't know how they're going to separate it out from everyone else. But what if somebody does jump in? The nicest thing would be able to just hail them and tell them, hey, we're covering this. We're going to kill anybody who comes clear, so don't come clear. That's what happens at Hathor. A lot of times it ends up with you just killing people. And I don't want to see the same thing with this sort of event. We don't know how it's going to be staged, so I won't jump to conclusions. But
Yeah.
I really hope that they can get some kind of social upgrades in by 4.8.
I am almost so convinced that it can't come without them that it's now getting me to the point where I'm like, there will be the first social tools coming in 4.8 with the tactical.
But then
It
what
would
if the
be-
loading screen mix up?
I think ultimately the loading screen thing maybe was always about data running.
Yeah.
And they just didn't realize that we would all be like, oh, this is clearly about social tools. Like, I think the narrative team wrote this storyline for the loading screens, and they didn't realize that people would read into it the wrong direction. I think is ultimately what happened.
They don't see our desperation.
No.
Okay.
Oh,
then
dear.
that begs the question then, because I think this is why everybody thought it was social tools. Is like, where in the world is data running going to come from?
Well, yeah. And what even is data running? We did talk about this a bit earlier as well. We said people were talking about. I was like, what even is data running other than picking up a data pad and taking it somewhere? But people pointed out, well, it can be intercepting data. It can be data on a timer that has to be transported before, or even somebody said, and I scoffed at this idea, but it could even mean hacking, couldn't it? Like hacking, gathering the data could involve hacking, but I think hacking is at this stage less likely to happen than, I don't even know, me becoming the king of England. I think hacking.
Oh, hacking triggers me, dude.
Yeah.
Hacking is like what salvage was between 2018 and 2022.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, as a Legionnaire owner, I fear that hacking could be one of the last things that they put into the game, but you never know.
Even though it was
but yeah,
20 years ago.
Well, yeah. I don't know what their plan will be for data running, but yeah, based on that loading screen now, if that wasn't about social tools, which doesn't look like it was now, then yeah, you'd expect data running maybe to come in at some point this year, and they have at various places mentioned that there's another feature, a new gameplay loop or gameplay feature coming this year. So that's all been quite unclear what that meant.
Right. Yeah, they said there's a new game loop coming in. The reason that I'm so weird about data running is because, well, I'm scared about it. It's the most exciting part of this game to me, and it was always built on the understanding that data would be a commodity. Just like, you had to transport a box of something to someone so they could craft it. You have to transport data on where resources are in a cave to somebody so they can actually get that on their star map. And that does not in any way feel possible with this game, considering the state of the star map, how quantum traveling works, how our ability to communicate data to each other works. So it worries me the possibility of data running coming in anytime soon if those supporting features aren't there, because I don't want them to come in and just be like, data is just a data pad cargo mission.
But you know what it'll be? It'll be tier 0. Come on. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, you'd want it to come in and be more than just box delivery missions with no other. Yeah, you don't want that. But
imagine if they just said those were the courier missions. Holy shit, dude.
Yeah. There is a chance though that, because obviously what it says in the loading screen is fairly like on the nose, obviously talking about data running, saying that you shouldn't transfer your sensitive information through this new comms relay network. You should take that physically through. It's like, that's clearly about data running, unless the narrative team are so far removed from what we as players are kind of reading into that they're like, no, don't worry, it wasn't. No, what are you talking about? If they it's possible that somehow they didn't pick up on the fact that, again, we'd all read into this and say, well, that means data running's coming. Like, surely they'd have reviews internally when they're putting these things together for narrative to be like, well, if you say that, the community's going to think this, and therefore it's got to be intentional. So I would assume that you have to assume data running's coming this year.
I mean, you'd also have to assume that they would have seen the Flight Blade stuff coming up before they did that.
Yeah, well, that's a different team, though, isn't it? That yeah, that's
could be a different team. You're right.
There was an element of risk taking with that, in that they're saying, well, in order to make a load of money, we're going to try this thing with the Flight Blades. Whereas this is like, there's no benefit from them miscommunicating about data running. But anyway,
that is true.
We've probably gone too far.
I like the nuance there. All right, then to wrap things up, let's talk about the next 6 months. I feel like we've already taken all the energy out of possibly big predictions here, but I'd like to hear what your big prediction for the next 6 months might be, so we can write that down and come back to it next time. Actually, hold on, I gotta figure out.
Have you got my last one?
Yeah.
I feel like this whole episode and all these predictions are just, you're trying to bait me into saying something that's going to get people cross at me.
It really, really has been, hasn't it? Where is this list?
What's the most controversial thing that I could say here? Let's think about that. What would make the most people upset?
I think you've already done that. But...
Well, no, I bet I can come up with something better. Hang on.
All right, let's see. So your last prediction. Oh man, I don't have it written down because we weren't using the new system yet. So you got a clean slate.
All right, I'm sure it was about. I think it was something about Squadron, wasn't it? No, I don't know. Yeah, the other thing.
Wait. I can pull it up very quickly here.
Okay.
Because I do have the old. Yeah, here we go. Here's the old page. All right. So your last prediction that I at least have written down was base building coming in 2026 and Castra added in 2026, similar to Nick's. So you still got plenty of time for that.
No, they're terrible predictions. Neither of those are going to happen now, I don't think. I think there's zero chance of base building.
I hear people saying Castra still.
I think if you again, we did this earlier when we were on stream. If you step it out the rest of the year, if you say 4.8 is the tactical strike groups, like they've told us, you've then got 3 more patches in the year. You've got 4.9 in July, you've got 4.10 in September, and 4.11 in November, December, whatever. And the 3 big things from CitizenCon that they then haven't given us yet that you'd think would have to fit into those patches are Siege of Orison, which is instance, Municipal Works, which is also instance, and then Planet Tech V5. And so I don't think there's a ton of room for Castra or base building to fit in. I would be shocked. I'd be shocked if base building came in any. I just don't think that's realistic. They didn't mention it at CitizenCon last year at all, and they haven't mentioned it at all. I'd be shocked. Castra's may be possible right at the end of the year, but I think more likely the end of the year, maybe in December, will be in a tech preview for quasi-dynamic server meshing. I think that's more likely to be the end of the. You know how at the end of the year they like to do some big fun thing that everybody gets excited about. I think to try and do like tests of 2,000 people on a shard in the tech preview, I think that'd be more likely. But okay. That's the boring prediction. My prediction is still it's more of a question.
Prediction. I want something we can prove next time.
I'll start with a question. Why have they not delayed Squadron 42 yet out of 2026?
Because it's launching in 2026.
Well, that's where you get to. It's like, if they are going to delay it, why have they not let us down softly already? Same. And so yeah.
Delay it right after Invictus Week.
I don't know how linked Star Citizen's ship sales are to Squadron. I think as long as Star Citizen... Go on.
I mean, it'd be such bad press, right?
It would be, but I don't think that would stop the people who were going to buy ships at Invictus from buying ships. But maybe you're right. Maybe you're right that they might, if they are going to delay it, they're running out of time to delay it. If that makes any sense, as in, it's like it's confusing that they've not delayed it if they're not still targeting 2026. Now it's possible they don't know, but my prediction will be, and we talk again. My prediction is this. It will be Summer Games Fest, June the 5th.
Oh,
Squadron,
boy, dude.
Squadron launch, not launch of the game, marketing launch.
Yeah.
Marketing launch in the build-up. Now, do I fully believe this? I don't fully believe this. I still personally am quite worried that it's going to be delayed into 2027. But the longer they don't delay it into 2027, the more I start to think it is actually going to happen. That's my. Am I crazy? You tell me if I'm crazy.
I don't think you're. I'm hearing whispers and murmurs, and I think you're on point with the expectations of if they haven't delayed it this year, then why not? I do think there are a lot of people though who are looking at Squadron as the sign that Star Citizen's going to get some progress. A lot of folks are sitting in kind of a pattern of waiting. Probably can see that things are starting to speed up, but really the teller is does Squadron launch? Because for so many people, Squadron launching means Star Citizen gets focus. That might not be the case, but
Yeah.
I do think that CIG realizes that a lot of people are waiting for that to see. So it could make the difference between buying an Ironclad at Drake Defensicon versus waiting another year. And maybe maybe you want to announce the delay after that. But I also do think that this year is looking possible. I doubt that they're in like a comfortable position. I'm sure they're banging their heads on it trying to get into a place where it works. Um, but I think they're gonna want to get it out this year. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm now doubting myself because their kind of MO is that if they've got bad news, they delay it and delay it and delay it and delay it until the last moment, and then they tell us. And so now I'm starting to think that's a bad prediction, and that's
Well,
gonna that's gonna come back and bite me.
the last delay was what 2016, right? I think we were told about that one.
No, the last day was at CitizenCon in 2024, wasn't it?
No, I don't think they had a new release date since
Not no
2016.
no, that's fair. Yeah, no, an actual solid date that they've delayed. No, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So, do you remember when they delayed that after they said answer the call 2016? Because I don't. I wasn't even really around then.
It's so far back that I can't remember. No. I can just all I can remember is the feeling in the room at 2020. So I was at CitizenCon in 2024 when they did their whole big the prologue, and that at the end that thing comes up. Everybody's kind of been wowed by this pretty impressive demo, and then at the end the ship flies at the screen, the squadron thing flips around, and it says 2026, and the room was like, ah. There was such disappointment. Everybody was thinking. Everybody. I'm that's hyperbolic, but everybody in the room was like 2025, 2025, and then it turned around and said 2026. And I think they got away with it because it was quite an impressive demo they showed off. But
Yeah.
you're
Very
right. They will
disappointing.
get. It was disappointing, and they will get a lot because what I think Chris said at the time was, we're saying 2026. This is a paraphrase, but we're saying 2026 because we want to make sure we can hit it. I think he said something like that. Somebody can shout at me if that's wrong, but he said something along those lines. And so if they end up not hitting 2026, people will be frustrated, I
It's
think.
gonna look even worse. Yeah. I mean, they said it's ready in 2 years. They gave themselves 2 years, dude. 2 years is like the amount of time some games get announced and then released. So
Yeah.
to make that announcement and then still need to delay it now is going to be a pretty bad look. I do agree. And then on top of that, for him to have said during that same speech, I think he said, we're working on it, and when it's ready to be released, you're going to be the first to know. Which means it's still not ready to be released. So
Yep.
either it means that and we trust him, or he was lying. It doesn't really matter what it is, but I do understand why people can be feeling nervous about it right now. But I think Gamescom, or not Gamescom, Summer Games Fest would be a cool way to start the marketing campaign.
I think there's a chance. That I'll stick with that for my prediction. There'll be the start of something there.
I like that one. I like that. I'm looking forward to seeing if that happens, because they've got to play their marketing smart, and they really, really could. Like, they've got Summer Games Fest. They've got a summer that's going to be kind of busy, but there aren't that many major games expected this fall yet. There's like Fable, Grand Theft Auto, probably a few more that I don't know, and some that haven't been quite talked about yet. But like, they've got some space to advertise, and then Gamescom, They could do
Yeah,
something good.
follow up with Gamescom, and then some sort of CitizenCon launch,
Yeah.
SquadCon, whatever. Yeah,
Squad
it's possible. I think if you were looking at the year and saying they still want to hit 2026, they can't go much later than June. I mean, they've talked about their idea of having in his letter for the chairman. Chris says we don't need a long drawn out marketing campaign, but I think when again we read this morning, he said something like. But the whole gaming world will know. We'll make sure they know, something like that. So they will get it out there in a big way, and there's not many bigger ways to put PC games out there than things like the Summer Games Fest and Gamescom. So if it is coming, it can't be much later than that this year.
I also think that long-term Squadron's actually going to be an asset to the next Xbox, but that's a whole other conversation. That
Yeah.
But in terms of like the PC game idea, and they've announced that it's going to play PC games, I do think that that's going to be a opportunity for them to market Squadron 42 a little bit more long term.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Once it's out, you look at things like Skyrim that have been sold so many times over. There's so many different versions on different consoles. You get a Switch. I mean, I don't think Squadron will end up on the Switch too, but they just because they've got the game out, that's not the end of its ability to sell. Like if it's a good game, if people like it, the cast wows people, the acting, whatever, the motion capture, the characters look good, all that sort of stuff. There's a potential for this to sell consistently over the next, who knows, 5 to 10 years. Like they could do a deluxe version on the next console. Like there's all sorts of options. So yeah, as much as we don't want it to come out and flop, like we want it to come out and sell really well, so CIG have loads of money to hopefully make Star Citizen. They've got, it's a potential money earner for many years, Squadron, in some ways.
Yeah. It's not a live service. It's not going to die just because it has a bad launch. Look at Cyberpunk. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Alrighty, man. Thank you for joining for this talk. Oh, we got through a lot today. Really just a good look at kind of where Star Citizen is heading with 4.7 in 2026 context, but definitely a classic tomato 10-pound talk, I would say. Thank you so much.
You've set me up big time in this one.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah. Leave your thoughts down below, everybody. Comments. Tag 10 pounds. Send him emails. Maybe a couple care packages.
Do that. No.
Any final thoughts before we go, or do you want to let folks know where they can find your content?
Yeah, I don't think I need any more thoughts. I think we've done enough here, but enough damage. But yeah, TenPoundFortyTwo on YouTube and TenPoundFortyTwo on Twitch. Normally the videos on YouTube are about performance and stuff and talking about the game, and the streams Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 a.m. UK time, which has been a lot of fun. More fun than I ever possibly imagined. I realised that streaming actually is quite fun and not terrifying and scary all the time, which I thought it would be at the start. But no, it's been a lot of fun. So yeah, feel free to come and join.
Nice, dude. And I realized we didn't talk about performance at all today.
It's not good, so okay. It's not good. At the moment, 4.6 was not a good patch for performance, so hopefully 4.7 will be better. We'll test when it goes live.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, man. Thanks for joining me. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Hope you enjoyed this show. Got to watch or listen, daily commute, hanging out in bed, whatever it is you're doing. I hope we gave you some good information, entertainment, and all the good stuff. Yeah. All right. See you guys next time. Have a good week.